My sister sabotaged the biggest interview of my life by dumping her chaotic kids on me, costing me a fortune. Mom called me selfish for refusing, but when they came back begging for a mortgage cosigner, I didn't say no. I said yes, then destroyed them. This story is going to make your blood boil before it cools you down with some serious justice, so make sure you are subscribed to see exactly how this trap springs. I'm curious, have you ever had a family member cost you a professional opportunity? Let me know in the comments. The silence in my home office was expensive. It was a carefully cultivated, acoustically dampened silence that I had spent the last 3 days perfecting. I sat in my ergonomic chair, my spine stiff against the mesh, checking the lighting for the 10th time. The ring light reflected in my pupils like tiny, white halos. I smoothed the lapel of my navy blazer, taking a deep, shuddering breath. On the screen in front of me, the countdown timer to the Zoom meeting read, 04:15. This wasn't just a job interview. It was the interview. The role was senior systems architect for a major fintech firm based in Zurich. The salary was $180,000 a year, fully remote, with a signing bonus that would wipe out my student loans in a single stroke. I had gone through 4 rounds of vetting to get here. This was the final behavioral interview with the CTO. I took a sip of water, terrified of spilling a drop on my white blouse. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. You are ready, I told myself. You are qualified. You are going to change your life today. Then the doorbell rang. It wasn't a polite, delivery person ring. It was a frantic, sustained, leaning on the button buzz that drilled straight into my skull. I froze. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the timer. 03:30. I bolted from my chair, ripping my headset off and tossing it onto the desk. I sprinted down the hallway in my socks, sliding on the hardwood as I reached the front door. I threw it open, ready to tell whoever it was that I was busy, that I was working, that they had to leave immediately. My sister, Alexa, stood there. She was wearing oversized sunglasses and clutching a venti latte, looking impeccably put together in yoga pants that cost more than my car payment. Flanking her were her 3 children, Noah, 7, Liam, 5, and Bella, 3. They were already vibrating with sugar-induced energy. Thank God, Alexa huffed, pushing past me before I could even speak. I am late for my appointment. She herded the kids into my foyer. Noah immediately kicked off his muddy sneakers, sending one flying into the wall with a dull thud. Alexa, no, I said, my voice rising in panic. I grabbed her arm. You cannot be here. I have an interview in 3 minutes. A massive interview. Alexa pulled her arm away, adjusting her sunglasses. Claire, don't be dramatic. It's just a Zoom call. Put on a virtual background. I have a lash appointment and then I'm meeting the girls for brunch. I need a break. Mom said you were home. I am home because I am working, I half screamed, looking at the kids. Liam had already found a marker from somewhere and was uncapping it. You have to take them. I cannot babysit right now. There is literally $180,000 on the line. Alexa rolled her eyes, a gesture so practiced it felt physical. Money, 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 that's all you care about. Look, just put them in front of the TV. They'll be fine. I'll be back at 2. 2, that's 4 hours away. Bye, love you. She turned and practically jogged to her car. Alexa, I screamed after her, stepping onto the porch. She slammed her car door, revved the engine, and peeled away. I stood there, horrified. The timer in my head was ticking down. 01:45. I dragged the kids inside and slammed the door. Okay, I said, my voice shaking. Listen to Auntie Claire, you have to be quiet, silent. If you are silent for 1 hour, I will buy you pizza. Do you understand? Noah looked at me, his eyes gleaming with malicious opportunity. I want pizza now. Later, I snapped. I ran to the living room, turned on the TV to a high volume, and threw a bag of pretzels on the coffee table. Stay here, do not move. I sprinted back to my office, slamming the door and locking it. My hands were trembling so hard I could barely put my headset back on. I sat down, smoothed my hair, and forced a smile onto my face just as the screen flickered. The CTO, a stern-faced woman named Dr. Eris, appeared on the screen. "Hello, Claire," she said, her voice crisp and professional. "Excellent to meet you finally." "The pleasure is mine, Dr. Eris," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the adrenaline flooding my system. "Thank you for the opportunity." "Let's dive right in," she said. "I was reviewing your code regarding the server migration in your portfolio, specifically the redundancy protocols. Can you walk me through your log?" "Ike there." "Absolutely," I began. "So, the primary challenge was latency during peak hours. I implemented a sharding strategy that—" Bang! The sound was like a gunshot. Something heavy had slammed into my office door. Dr. Eris paused. "Is everything all right?" "Yes," I said quickly, my smile tightening into a grimace. "Just some construction next door. Apologies. As I was saying, the sharding strategy allowed us to—" "Anti-CLAIRE," Liam hit me. Bella's scream pierced through the wood of the door, high-pitched and ear-splitting. I froze. Dr. Eris tilted her head. "Is that a child?" "I apologize," I said, sweat prickling on my forehead. My niece and nephews had an emergency drop-off. They are usually very quiet." "I see," Dr. Eris said. She looked unimpressed. "This role requires intense concentration, Claire. We deal with sensitive financial data. The environment needs to be secure and distraction-free." "It is," I promised, desperate. "This is a one-time anomaly. It will not happen." The doorknob rattled violently. Then the pounding started, a rhythmic, heavy thumping against the door. "Open the door, I have to poop," Noah roared. My face went hot. I muted the microphone. "Go to the bathroom," I screamed at the door. I unmuted. "I am so sorry." Dr. Eris was looking down at her notes, her expression closed off. "Let's try to get through the technical questions. If you were managing a database deadlock, how would you prioritize the rollback?" "I would identify the transaction with the least amount of accumulated work and—" "I'm gonna pee my pants." The pounding turned into kicking. The door frame shook. Then my phone buzzed on the desk. It was my mother, Brenda. I ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. The vibration against the wood desk sounded like a drill. Dr. Eris stopped speaking. She looked at me, then at the source of the noise. "Claire, perhaps we should reschedule? It seems you are overwhelmed." "No, please," I begged. "I can handle this. I just need 1 second." I grabbed my phone to silence it, but I accidentally answered. My mother's voice blared out on speakerphone, loud enough for the microphone to pick up. "Claire, Alexa called me crying. She said you were rude to her when she's just trying to have a self-care day. How dare you? Family comes first. Open that door and help those children." The silence that followed on the Zoom call was absolute. Dr. Eris looked at me. There was no sympathy in her eyes, only a cold professional judgment. She saw a woman who couldn't manage her boundaries, whose life was chaotic, who let family drama bleed into a C-suite environment. "I think we've seen enough, Claire," Dr. Eris said quietly. "We're looking for someone with a high degree of professional separation. This isn't the fit we're looking for." "Dr. Eris, please, Good luck in your search," she said. The screen went black. I sat there, staring at the reflection of my own devastated face in the dark monitor. The pounding on the door had stopped, replaced by the sound of cartoons and giggling from the living room. They had gotten bored and walked away. I took off the headset and placed it gently on the desk. I looked at the $180,000 rejection. The betrayal hit me then, a physical blow to the stomach that doubled me over in my ergonomic chair. It wasn't just the money. It was the disrespect. It was the fact that my sister's lash appointment was deemed more important than my entire career. The silence of the disconnected Zoom call hurt more than the screaming behind the door. For 20 minutes, I didn't move. I sat in the dim light of my office, listening to the muffled sounds of destruction in the next room. I could hear the distinct crash of a lamp, the scuff of toys being dragged across my hardwood floors, and the whine of the television. I felt hollowed out. A numbness had settled over me, a gray fog that suppressed the urge to scream or cry. It was a defense mechanism, I suppose. If I had let myself feel the full weight of what had just happened, I might have torn the house down. I stood up, my legs feeling heavy and clumsy, and walked out of the office. The living room was a war zone. My white rug, a treat I had bought for myself when I got my last promotion, was stained with orange pretzel dust and something sticky and purple. Cushions were scattered everywhere. Noah was jumping on my beige sofa with his shoes on. When he saw me, he stopped mid-bounce. "I'm hungry," he declared. I looked at him, I looked at the mess. I didn't yell, I didn't scold him. I didn't have the energy to parent children that weren't mine. "Sit down," I said. My voice was so flat, so devoid of emotion, that Noah actually sat. I went to the kitchen, made 3 peanut butter sandwiches, put them on paper plates, and set them on the table. I poured 3 glasses of water. "Eat," I said. I sat in the corner armchair, watching them eat, my phone buzzing incessant. Lie in my pocket. It was Brenda again. I didn't answer. I just watched the children of the sister who had just ruined my life. Alexa didn't come back at 2. She didn't come back at 3. She breezed through the front door at 5:30 p.m., smelling of expensive perfume and white wine. She looked radiant, her eyelashes long and fluttering, her hair blown out to perfection. "Oh my God, I needed that so bad," she announced, dropping her keys on the entry table. She looked around the messy living room and wrinkled her nose. "Wow, it's a mess in here. You really let them run wild, didn't you? I hope you're going to clean this up before Mom comes over for Sunday dinner." She didn't ask how the interview went. She didn't ask if I was okay. She assumed, as she always did, that my time was infinite and hers was precious. I stood up slowly. "Alexa." She looked at me, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. "What? You look terrible, by the way, very pale." "I lost the job," I said. She paused, applying a touch of lip gloss. "What job?" "The interview, the one I told you about, the one I was in when you forced your way inside." "Oh, that," she waved a dismissive hand. "You didn't lose it because of the kids, Claire. You probably just weren't qualified. Besides, you already have a job. Why do you need a new one? You make plenty of money. Don't be greedy." I stared at her. The sheer, unadulterated narcissism was breathtaking. She genuinely believed that. In her world, I was the supporting character, the NPC, non-player character, designed to facilitate her main storyline. My struggles were inconveniences to her, my successes were threats. "It was $180,000, Alexa," I said quietly. Her hand froze with the lip gloss wand in midair. Her eyes narrowed, just for a fraction of a second, a flash of pure, ugly envy, before she masked it with a scoff. "Well," she said, snapping her purse shut. "Maybe it's for the best. You work too much anyway. You need to focus more on family. Speaking of which, Mom said you were rude to her on the phone. You really need to apologize. She's been stressing about my housing situation, and you yelling at her didn't help." She gathered the kids, who were now whining about being tired. "Come on, monsters, let's go." She herded them out the door. She didn't say thank you. She didn't offer to help clean the rug. She just took what she needed and left the wreckage behind. I locked the door behind her. I slid the deadbolt home with a definitive click. I walked back to the living room and looked at the stain on the rug. I picked up my phone. 5 missed calls from Mom, 3 texts. "Mom, you are so selfish. Your sister is a single mother doing her best. Mom, call me and apologize to your sister. Mom, family helps family, Claire." I didn't reply. I went to the kitchen and got a trash bag. As I scrubbed the purple stain, grape juice, I realized a cold clarity began to replace the numbness. They thought this was just another Tuesday. They thought I would cry for a day, get over it, and return to my role as the family bank, the safety net, the doormat. They thought I was weak because I was quiet. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. I was a systems architect. My entire career was built on analyzing complex systems, finding the points of failure, and engineering solutions. I didn't just fix broken code, I removed it. I wasn't going to yell, I wasn't going to fight, I was going to wait. Because I knew something about Alexa's finances that she didn't know I knew. I knew she was drowning. And soon, she would need air. To understand why I didn't burn the house down right then and there, you have to understand the architecture of my family. It had always been the Alexa show. Alexa was the beautiful one, the charismatic one, the one who peaked in high school and spent every year since trying to reclaim that glory. She was 34, 2 years older than me, but emotionally she was stuck at 16. I was the smart one, the sensible one, code words for the invisible one. While Alexa was going to parties and dating the captain of the football team, I was in the library, studying for AP Calculus. While Alexa was dropping out of 3 different colleges to find herself, on my parents' dime, I was working 2 jobs to pay for my computer science degree so I wouldn't burden them. Brenda, my mother, facilitated this dynamic with the precision of a cult leader. In Brenda's eyes, Alexa was a fragile flower that needed constant watering, while I was a cactus, hardy, prickly, and needing nothing. Claire can handle it, was the family motto. Need $500 for bail? Call Claire. Need someone to co-sign a car lease because Alexa's credit score is in the double digits? Call Claire. Need someone to stay home and care for Dad when he got sick so Alexa could go to Coachella? Tell Claire it's her duty. And I did it. For years, I did it. I bought into the family-first propaganda because I want their approval. I wanted my mother to look at me with the same adoration she gave Alexa. But I was realizing, painfully, that you cannot buy love from people who only see you as a wallet. Alexa's profession was a vague mix of multi-level marketing schemes and content creation. She sold diet teas, then essential oils, then leggings. Currently, she was rebranding herself as a lifestyle momfluencer. Her Instagram was a curated feed of beige aesthetics and staged photos of her children, captioned with platitudes about the chaotic beauty of motherhood. Behind the scenes, her life was a financial sinkhole. She had divorced her husband 2 years ago, a decent man she cheated on because he was boring, and he paid the bare minimum in child support. She lived in a rental condo that was way beyond her means, drove a leased Range Rover she couldn't afford gas for, and constantly borrowed money from Brenda. And Brenda, who lived on a fixed pension, would turn around and guilt-trip me into helping out. The week after the interview disaster, the silence from my end seemed to unsettle them. I didn't show up for Sunday dinner. I didn't answer Brenda's daily calls. Then, 7 days after I lost the job, the text came. It wasn't an apology, it was a request. Alexa, hey, hope you're done being grumpy. I have huge news. I found the perfect house. It's in that new gated community, Oakwood Estates. It's perfect for the kids and great for my brand. We need to talk. I stared at the phone. Oakwood Estates? The houses there started at $600,000. Alexa didn't have a verifiable income, let alone a down payment. A second text followed immediately. Alexa, the bank is being super annoying and unfair about my income consistency. They want a cosigner. Mom said you would do it since you owe me for scaring the kids last week. Can you come over tonight to sign the papers? I read the message twice, since you owe me. The audacity was so pure, so chemically perfect, that I almost laughed. She destroys my $180,000 opportunity, and her logic dictates that I owe her a mortgage on a mansion. She needed a cosigner, of course she did. Without one, she was radioactive to any lender. This was it, the leverage. If I said no, Brenda would launch a nuclear war of guilt. They would harass me at work, show up at my house, and slander me to the extended family. A simple no wouldn't teach them anything. But a yes with conditions, that opened a door. I typed back slowly. Me, that sounds like a big step, Alexa. I'm willing to consider it. But if I'm going to put my name on a $500,000 debt, I need to see the full financial picture. I need to review the loan application and your bank statements to make sure we get approved. The response was immediate. Alexa, OMG yay, you're the best. I knew you'd come around. I'll send you the login for the portal. The loan officer is rushing us, so we have to sign by Friday. She didn't hesitate. She didn't think twice about handing me the keys to her financial closet. She was so accustomed to me fixing her messes that she assumed I would just glance at the numbers, sigh, and sign the line. She had no idea that she had just handed the systems architect the blueprints to her destruction. The login credentials Alexa sent me were for a secure document portal used by a mid-sized lender called Summit Mortgage. Along with the username and password, she included a text. Don't look at the credit score lol, it's a glitch. Just focus on the income part so you can verify it for them. I sat at my desk, the same desk where my career had died a week earlier, and logged in. My monitors bathed the room in a cool, blue light. I cracked my knuckles, a habit I usually reserved for debugging particularly nasty spaghetti code. In a way, that's exactly what this was. I wasn't looking at variables and functions, but the input and output of my sister's chaotic life. I opened the folder labeled Borrower Assets. The first thing that hit me was the sheer volume of debt. It wasn't just a glitch. It was a catastrophe. I opened her primary checking account statement. It was a hemorrhage of red ink. Daily trips to Starbucks, almost exclusively the expensive venti specialty drinks. Multiple transactions at high-end boutiques. A $400 charge at a salon the day after she claimed she couldn't afford Noah's school supplies. I pulled up a spreadsheet on my second monitor and began to categorize the data. Finding one, the subsidized life. I cross-referenced her deposits with the checks my mother wrote. It was staggering. Every time Alexa's account dipped below $100, which was weekly, there was a transfer from Brenda. $200 here, $500 there. Groceries, the memo line said, but the corresponding debits on Alexa's account weren't for grocery stores. They were for Lululemon, Sephora, and the Wine Loft. Mom wasn't feeding the kids. She was funding Alexa's cosplay of a wealthy suburban mom. Ending 2, the interview day. My heart hammered against my ribs as I scrolled back to the date of my interview. Tuesday, the 14th. Alexa had claimed she had a lash appointment and then was meeting the girls for brunch. She said she was desperate for a break. I looked at the timestamps. 09:45 a.m. She dropped the kids off at my house. 10:05 a.m. Transaction at Bean and Leaf Coffee, A shop 3 blocks from my house. Amount, $6.45. 10:15 m to 11:30 a.m. No transactions. She hadn't gone to a lash appointment. Her lash technician was on the other side of town. She couldn't have made it there and back to the coffee shop in that time. She had dropped the kids off, driven 3 blocks away, bought a coffee, and sat there. She sat 3 blocks away while her children screamed and destroyed my career. She wasn't busy. She wasn't at an appointment. She was loitering, running out the clock, knowing exactly what was happening inside my house. Then came the kicker. 11:45 a.m., transaction at the Golden Grill. Amount, $85. This was a restaurant known for its bottomless mimosas. The timestamp was 15 minutes after my interview imploded. She was celebrating. I felt a cold rage settle in my stomach, heavier than lead. It wasn't negligence. It was malice. She wanted me to fail. If I got the Zurich job, I would likely move or at least be less accessible. I would be too big for her little dramas. By sabotaging me, she kept me local, humble, and available to babysit. Finding 3, the fraud, I moved on to the income verification folder. This is where the trap truly snapped shut. To qualify for a $600,000 mortgage, Alexa needed to show a substantial, steady income. Since she was a content creator, this usually meant tax returns, but she didn't have those. Instead, there were PDF uploads labeled Pay Stubs Brand Partnerships. I opened one. It looked professional at first glance. It was a payment advice slip from a well-known athletic wear company, listing a monthly retainer of $8,500 paid to Alexa Miller Consulting. I zoomed in. I am a systems architect. I work with digital documents and data integrity for a living. I know what a generated PDF looks like, and I know what a manipulated one looks like. The font on the dollar amount was slightly different from the font on the header, Arial versus Helvetica. To the naked eye, invisible. To me, it was a neon sign. I right-clicked the file and opened the metadata properties. Created 3 days ago. Application, Adobe Photoshop CC. Author, Alexa Miller. She hadn't earned this money. She had photoshopped it. I opened the next file, another fake, and the next. She had fabricated an entire income stream. She was presenting herself to a federally regulated lender as earning over $100,000 a year from contracts that didn't exist. This wasn't just lying to mom. This was bank fraud, federal crime, felonies punishable by up to 30 years in prison and $1 million fine. And she wanted me to co-sign. If I signed this, I wouldn't just be liable for the debt when she inevitably defaulted. I would be an accessory to fraud. When the bank realized the documents were fake, and they eventually would, during the underwriting audit, they would come for both of us. I sat back, the blue light washing over my face. "Okay, Alexa," I whispered to the empty room. "You want me to handle the finances? I'll handle them." I didn't call the police. Not yet. That was too easy. I needed to get them in a room. I needed Brenda to see this. I needed the loan officer to see this. I needed to dismantle the golden child myth so thoroughly that no amount of crying could glue it back together. I picked up my phone and typed a message to Alexa. Hey, looked through the portal. The numbers are a bit complex, and I think the bank might flag some of the transfers if we don't explain them correctly. We need to meet with Mom to get the story straight before we sign. Her reply came in 10 seconds. "Alexa, you always overcomplicate things. Fine, come to Mom's tomorrow night. Pizza is on you, though." My mother's house smelled like pot roast and denial. It was the house I grew up in, a place where the walls were covered in photos of Alexa. Alexa at prom, Alexa's wedding to the first husband, Alexa's baby shower. There was one photo of me, my graduation picture, tucked away in the hallway, half obscured by a fake fern. When I walked in, carrying 3 large pepperoni pizzas, the atmosphere was festive. Alexa was at the dining table, which was covered in brochures for Oakwood Estates. Mom was pouring wine. "Finally," Alexa said, not looking up from a brochure. "I was starving. Did you bring napkins?" "Hello to you too," I said, setting the boxes down. "Oh, Claire, don't start," Brenda said, bustling over to give me a perfunctory side hug. "We are celebrating. Alexa found the most beautiful house. It has a sunroom for her content creation. And a pool for the kids," Alexa added. Dead, circling a floor plan with a pink highlighter. "It's perfect. Once you sign the cosigner addendum, the loan officer, his name is Gary, he's super nice, said we can close in 30 days. I sat down opposite them. I didn't take off my coat. I felt like a spy in enemy territory. "That's great," I said calmly, "but we need to talk about the application first. I went through the documents." Alexa waved a hand, her mouth full of pizza. Yeah, just standard stuff. I told you, my income fluctuates because I'm an entrepreneur." "It fluctuates a lot," I said. "Alexa, I saw the pay stubs you uploaded, the ones from the athletic wear company." "Yeah," she didn't flinch. "Big contract, I'm an ambassador now." "I checked your bank statements for the last 12 months, I said, keeping my voice even. "I didn't see a single deposit from that company, not one." The room went quiet. The only sound was the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Alexa chewed slowly, her eyes darting to Mom. "Well, they pay via PayPal, and then I keep it in there for business expenses. It doesn't always hit the main account. The pay stubs listed a direct deposit to your main checking account ending in 4590, I countered. The account that was overdrawn 6 times last month. Brenda slammed her wine glass down. Claire, why are you interrogating her? She asked for your help, not an audit. You're just jealous because she's buying a house in a gated community and you're still in that little starter home. My starter home is paid off, Mom, I said. And I'm not jealous, I'm terrified. Alexa, these documents aren't just inaccurate. They're fake. You photoshopped them. Alexa's face turned a violent shade of red. I did not. I enhanced them. The original files were blurry, so I just retyped the numbers so the bank could read them. It's the same thing. It is not the same thing, I said, leaning forward. That is fraud, Alexa. If I sign my name to that application and the bank finds out you lied about your income, we both go to jail. Do you understand that? Jail. Oh, stop being so dramatic, Brenda yelled. She stood up, looming over me. She is manifesting her income. She is going to make that money next month. She's just projecting her success. Why can't you support your sister for once in your miserable life? You lost your job, so you want everyone else to be a loser too. The accusation hung in the air. You lost your job. I lost my job, I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, because Alexa dropped her children off at my house during the interview, and then sat at a coffee shop for an hour while they screamed. Alexa froze. I was at my appointment. I saw the bank statement, Alexa, I said. Bean and leaf coffee. 10:05 a.m., you were 3 blocks away. She stammered, looking for a lie. I finished early, I was giving you space. You were waiting for me to fail, I said. So what if I was? Alexa exploded. She stood up, knocking her chair back. You think you're so much better than me with your fancy Zoom calls and your suits. Oh, I can't babysit, I'm earning $180,000. You rub it in my face every day, you deserve to be taken down a peg. Family is about being on the same level. There it is, I said softly. Brenda stepped between us, shielding Alexa. That is enough, Claire. She is under a lot of stress. She's a single mother. If you don't co-sign this mortgage, she and those babies are going to be stuck in that rental apartment forever. Do you want your niece and nephews to suffer because you're holding a grudge? It's not a grudge, Mom. It's a felony. It's only a felony if you tell someone, Brenda screamed. You're the smart one, Claire. Fix it. Make the numbers work. That's what you do. You fix things. I looked at them. My mother, red-faced and furious, demanding I commit a crime to maintain her delusion. My sister, smirk returning now that Mom was defending her, confident that I would fold like I always did. They didn't see a person, they saw a resource, a tool to be used until it broke. Okay, I said. The word hung there. Brenda blinked. Okay. Okay, I repeated. I will fix it, but I can't do it from the portal. The discrepancies are too big. I need to explain the income structure to the loan officer directly. If I just sign, the underwriter will reject it. But if I go to the bank with Alexa and we present a consolidated portfolio, we might get it approved. Alexa clapped her hands. See, I knew you could do it. I knew you weren't a total bitch. We need to meet with Gary, the loan officer, I said. In person, Friday morning, I'll bring all the documents. Friday is perfect, Alexa said, beaming. I'll book it. Good, I said, standing up. I'll see you there. I walked out of the house. I didn't eat a slice of pizza. As I got into my car, my hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady. I wasn't going to the bank to explain the income struck. I was going to the bank to hand Gary a dossier that would blacklist Alexa from every financial institution in the country. The 3 days leading up to Friday were a surreal exercise in psychological warfare. Alexa, confident that she had won yet again, bombarded me with texts. Not of gratitude, but of entitlement. Alexa, make sure you wear something nice to the bank. You looked frumpy at dinner. Alexa, I told Gary you're bringing the supplemental tax forms. You can forge those, right? Just use the template I used. Alexa, Mom says you need to apologize to me for the fraud comment before we sign. It hurt my feelings. I didn't reply to any of them. I was busy. I took a personal day from my frantic job hunt to assemble the weapon. I went to Staples and bought a thick, black binder. I bought dividers. Section 1, the bank statements. I printed 6 months of Alexa's transaction history. I used a yellow highlighter for the frivolous spending and a red highlighter for the transfers from Brenda. I wanted to show that her income was actually just an allowance from her mother. Section 2, the timeline. I printed the map showing the distance between my house and the coffee shop. I printed the timestamp of the transaction. I printed the email from the Zurich firm rejecting me. This wasn't for the bank, this was for the inevitable family court of public opinion. I needed proof that I didn't do this out of cruelty, but out of self-defense. Section 3, the fraud. This was the centerpiece. I printed the pay stubs Alexa had uploaded. Then, I printed the metadata report showing they were created in Photoshop. I also called the corporate headquarters of the athletic wear company she claimed to work for. I pretended to be a landlord doing a reference check. They confirmed via email, "We have no record of an Alexa Miller in our vendor or contractor database." I printed that email. Thursday night, Brenda called me. "Claire," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "I just wanted to make sure we're all set for tomorrow. Alexa is so excited. She's already picking out curtains." "We're set, Mom," I said. I was sitting on my living room floor, the binder open in front of me. It looked like a case file for a murder trial. "Good," Brenda said. "And Claire, I know you were upset about the interview, but think about how good it will feel to help your sister. God rewards those who sacrifice." "I think everyone is going to get exactly what they deserve tomorrow," I said. "That's the spirit," she chirped, completely missing the tone. "Oh, and Gary, the loan officer, said he needs 2 forms of ID from you. Don't forget." "I won't." I hung up. I looked at the binder. I looked at the golden child's ledger. There was a moment of hesitation. A small, scared part of me, the little girl who just wanted her mom to love her, whispered, "Is this too much? Can't you just refuse to sign and walk away?" If I just walked away, Brenda would find another way. They would find a predatory lender. They would coerce some other relative. And when Alexa inevitably defaulted, they would come back to me to bail them out of the foreclosure. If I walked away, the cycle would continue. Alexa would never learn. Brenda would never stop. I remembered the sound of Noah kicking my office door. I remembered the smirk on Alexa's face when she said, "So what if I was?" No, walking away wasn't an option. Scorched earth was the only way to ensure nothing could ever grow back. I closed the binder. The snap of the rings sounded like a gavel. Friday morning dawned gray and rainy. I put on my best suit, the charcoal one I would have worn to the first day of the Zurich job. I pulled my hair back into a severe, tight bun. I drove to the bank branch downtown. It was a glass-walled building, imposing and sterile. I saw Alexa's Range Rover in the parking lot. She was parked crookedly across 2 spaces. I grabbed the binder. I walked through the rain, feeling the cold drops on my face. Inside, Alexa and Brenda were already sitting in the glass-walled office of the loan officer. They were laughing. Alexa was showing the loan officer, a young man in a cheap suit who looked eager for a commission, photos of her kids on her phone. When I walked in, the laughter stopped. "Here she is," Alexa announced, throwing her arms out. "The money bags." Gary, the loan officer, stood up and extended a hand. "Hi, Claire. Nice to meet you. Alexa has told me so much about you. We're just thrilled you're able to step in and help getting this deal across the finish line." I shook his hand firmly. I didn't smile. "Hello, Gary," I said. I placed the black binder on his desk with a heavy thud. "Is that the tax returns?" Gary asked, looking at the binder. "Something like that," I said. I sat down. Alexa looked at the binder, then at me. Her smile faltered slightly. "What is that?" I told you just to bring the ID. I brought the ID, I said, reaching into my RSC and placing my driver's license on the desk. And I brought the due diligence. Great, Gary said, sitting back down. Well, I have the papers drawn up right here. It's a standard cosigner agreement. Essentially, you are guaranteeing the full amount of the loan in the event of default. Given Alexa's, burgeoning business, the bank just needs that extra layer of security. He slid a thick stack of papers toward me. Sign here, here, and initial here. Alexa was practically vibrating. Just sign it, Claire. We have a lunch reservation at 12:30. Brenda leaned in, whispering loudly, Do it for the family. I picked up the pen. I held it over the paper. Alexa's eyes were glued to the tip of the pen. She looked hungry. I looked at Gary. Gary, I said clearly. Before I sign this, I have a legal obligation to disclose some material facts regarding the primary borrower's application. I believe there has been an error in the underwriting process. Alexa's smile vanished. Claire, what are you doing? What kind of error? Gary asked, his brow furrowing. The kind involving federal bank fraud, I said. I opened the binder. The silence in Gary's office was absolute. It was a vacuum, sucking the oxygen out of the room. Outside the glass walls, the mundane business of the bank continued, tellers counting cash, customers depositing checks. But inside, the atmosphere had shifted from celebratory to suffocating. Gary blinked. He looked at the binder, then at me, then at the pen in my hand which I had just set down. I beg your pardon, Gary asked, his customer service smile twitching. Did you say fraud? Claire, what the hell are you doing? Alexa hissed, reaching for the binder. Gary, ignore her. She's just being a dramatic bitch because she's jealous. She doesn't understand how modern entrepreneurship works. I placed my hand firmly on top of the binder, pinning it to the desk. I understand exactly how it works, Alexa. I understand that entrepreneurship doesn't involve fabricating federal documents. I flipped the binder open to the first tab, Income Verification. Gary, I said, my voice calm and professional, the same voice I used when explaining a catastrophic server failure to a CEO. As you can see here, my sister submitted 3 pay stubs from Apex Athletics totaling $25,000 over the last quarter. Yes, Gary said, looking at the papers in the binder. Those are on file. We used them to calculate her debt-to-income ratio. Please turn to page 4, I instructed. Gary hesitated, then turned the page. This is a metadata analysis of the PDF files she uploaded to your portal, I said. Are you familiar with metadata, Gary? He shook his head slowly. Not really. It's the digital fingerprint of a file, I explained. It tells you who created it when and with what software. If these were legitimate pay stubs generated by a corporate payroll system like ADP or Workday, the author field would reflect that system. Instead, the author field lists Alexa Miller. The software used was Adobe Photoshop Creative Cloud, and the creation date was last Tuesday at 11:45 p.m. Gary stared at the page. His face went pale. He looked up at Alexa. Is this true? He asked. His voice had lost all its warmth. No, Alexa shrieked. She stood up, knocking her purse off the chair. She faked that. She's a computer genius. She can make the computer say whatever she wants. She's trying to frame me. It's a lie, Brenda joined in, her face turning a blotchy purple. You are trying to ruin your sister's life. Gary, look at me. My daughter is a hard worker. She is an influencer. Sometimes the paperwork is messy, but the money is real. If the money is real, I said, cutting through their noise, then why did the reference check fail? I flipped to the next tab, Corporate Verification. I took the liberty of contacting the Vendor Relations Department at Apex Athletics, I said. I sent them an inquiry regarding the employment status of Alexa Miller. Gary, please read the highlighted paragraph on page 6. Gary looked down. He read it, his lips moving slightly. Then he read it out loud, his voice flat. We have no record of an Alexa Miller Consulting, or any affiliated entity in our contractor database. Furthermore, our legal department has flagged the invoices you attached as fraudulent, as they do not match our corporate invoicing template. The silence returned, but this time it was heavy with dread. Gary slowly closed the binder. He pushed his chair back. He wasn't looking at Alexa as a client anymore. He was looking at her like she was a contagion. This is serious, Gary said. He looked at his computer screen and began typing furiously. Gary, listen to me, Alexa pleaded, her voice cracking. She leaned over the desk, flashing a desperate smile. It's a misunderstanding. I can explain. The contact at Apex is new. She probably just lost my file. You just approve the loan. I swear the money will be there. My sister is just. Stop, Gary said. He didn't look up. Ms. Miller, please stop talking. Don't talk to her like that, Brenda yelled, slamming her hand on the desk. We are customers. We demand respect. I want to speak to your manager. You really don't want to do that, Gary said. He stopped typing and looked at them. His face was hard. I just flagged this application in the system. The submit button is now locked out. I can't approve this loan even if I wanted to. Unlock it, Brenda demanded. Unflag it right now. I can't, Gary said. And frankly, I wouldn't. This is attempted mortgage fraud. We are required by federal law to file a suspicious activity report, SAR, with the Treasury Department when we encounter forged documents of this magnitude. Alexa gasped. The color drained from her face, leaving her makeup looking like a mask on a corpse. Report? What do you mean, report? I mean you need to leave, Gary said. He stood up. Now, before I call security. You can't do this, Alexa screamed. I already told my friends I bought the house. I posted it on Instagram. That is not my problem, Gary said. He turned to me. Claire, thank you for bringing this to our attention before funds were dispersed. You saved the bank a significant loss. Just doing my due diligence, I said quietly. I stood up, I picked up my purse. I left the binder on the desk. Come on, I said to my frozen family. We're leaving. Alexa looked at me, her eyes filled with a hatred so pure it was almost impressive. She let out a guttural scream of frustration, grabbed her purse, and stormed out of the office. Brenda followed, shooting daggers at Gary, muttering about lawsuits and discrimination. The walk through the bank lobby was the longest 40 seconds of Alexa's life. Every head turned. The tellers stopped counting. The security guard by the door straightened up, his hand hovering near his belt. Alexa, the golden child who lived for attention, was finally getting it, just not the kind she wanted. We burst out into the parking lot. The rain had stopped, leaving the asphalt slick and wet. Alexa spun around to face me, before we even reached the cars. I hope you die, she screamed. Her voice echoed off the brick wall of the bank. You jealous, miserable, barren cow, you did this on purpose. You set me up. I didn't set you up, Alexa, I said, my voice steady. I just turned on the lights. You're the one who painted the fake scenery. You ruined everything, she sobbed, tears streaming down her face, ruining her mascara. I was going to be happy there. The kids were going to have a pool. How could you do this to them? How could you do this to me? Because you cost me my future? I finally shouted back, my composure cracking just enough to let the fire out. Because you sat at a coffee shop drinking a latte while your children destroyed the biggest opportunity of my life. And you didn't care. You laughed about it. You thought I was just a wallet to be opened whenever you needed something. I am your sister, she wailed. No, I said, shaking my head. You're a parasite, and I'm done being the host. Brenda caught up to us panting. She grabbed my arm, her grip painful. Claire, go back in there and fix this. Tell him you were lying. Tell him it was a prank. Fix it. I looked at my mother. I looked at the woman who had spent 30 years telling me my feelings didn't matter, that my achievements were invisible, that my purpose was to serve Alexa. I pulled my arm out of her grip. No, I said. If you don't fix this, Brenda spat, her eyes wild, you are no daughter of mine. I will cut you off. You will be dead to this family. I looked at them both. Alexa, a sobbing mess of entitlement and fraud. Brenda, a tyrant losing control of her kingdom. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying since I was a child. "Mom," I said, smiling for the first time in weeks, "that is the best offer you have ever made me." I turned around, got into my car, and locked the doors. Alexa pounded on my window as I started the engine. "Who is going to pay for my lawyer?" "Claire, who is going to pay?" I put the car in reverse. I didn't look back. The fallout was slow, bureaucratic, and devastating. Because Gary had filed the suspicious activity report, Alexa didn't just lose the house. She lost her financial anonymity. Summit Mortgage put her on the fraud guard list, a database shared by lenders to prevent serial fraud. Her credit score didn't just dip, it was incinerated. She wasn't arrested. Federal prosecutors usually have bigger fish to fry than a suburban mom forging $8,000 pay stubs, but the threat of it hung over her for months. She had to hire a lawyer to deal with the inquiry, burning through the last of her legitimate savings. Without a cosigner, and with a flagged credit report, she couldn't. Renew the lease on her luxury condo. She was evicted 2 months later. She moved back in with Brenda. From what I heard through distant relatives, it was a living hell. 2 narcissists confined to a 3-bedroom ranch house with 3 high-energy children. Brenda, who loved the idea of grandchildren but hated the reality of sticky fingers and noise, was reportedly miserable. Alexa, stripped of her rich mom veneer, was spiraling into depression, blaming everyone but herself.